Hello and welcome to this SlimDevOps Live, very live, episode 16. Hello, Peter. Hello, Jillian. How are you?
Hey, we're doing great, Martin. Live from the booth, so
Indeed.
we've improved conference cam considerably. We have this dramatic lighting now. We have a real microphone that is definitely not sitting in a cup, since I forgot the microphone.
You're not supposed to mention the cup. Like, no
Oh,
one can
right.
see it. No,
Definitely not in a cup. And I'm here joined by, star of day 3, Jillian Huffnagel, who will be speaking later at 1:45, in addition to also working in our booth. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. Welcome, Jillian.
Thank you. It's been an awesome couple of days. I think I'm most grateful for the ability to safely spend time with other humans.
Mm-hmm.
It has been really beautiful.
Yeah, that has definitely been the theme today. Although today, the talk of today, Martin, and I don't know if you got a chance to see this talk virtually, but the keynote, Linux on Mars. Amazing, right? So super cool. They did a presentation from NASA today about like how Linux was the base operating system in their, in some of the Mars crafts and stuff like that. Did you get a chance to see that?
I caught the end of that one and I've got it marked because there's so many good things going on. So yes, I caught the end of that one. It's fascinating to me, just the utter sort of dominance of Linux everywhere. Everywhere from mechanical cow milkers to interstellar exploration. And yet, the thing that I've been so passionate about with Linux for such a long time is the desktop, and we're not even a footnote in the story of Linux there.
Yeah. We've had a couple of people coming by and talking to us about desktop. We talked to a pretty interesting person yesterday from a company that basically gets old devices and refurbishes them from an IT standpoint. They're called IT Renew, and they had some love for the Linux desktop organization. So that was good. But yeah, definitely the embedded folks are all pretty fired up about the presentation about Linux on Mars and what they could do there. So
yeah, what I thought was cool about the presentation too is it's not just that Linux was on Mars, but that the engineer that was presenting his work has also been in the organization at NASA for 30 years. So we're celebrating 30 years of Linux, and this engineer is celebrating 30 years of being a NASA engineer and has been a champion in bringing open source into NASA. And that was just a salient moment.
Yes, it's such a great area. In a past role, I had the opportunity to work with NASA on analysis of their flight data. They call them flights. We were aviation specialists, but it was a different kind of flight altogether. But it turned out that actually, once you're inside the atmosphere, flying is flying. And it was amazing that they came to us, and it wasn't because we were doing anything different. It's the fact that we had a robust analytics system, but it was an open analytics system, and it was that transparency of the algorithms that were being used and the data that was being produced. They could follow that entire chain from start to finish, which was what was important to them. Whereas ironically, a lot of the aviation analysis software is indeed a black box. You put data in and results come out the other side, and you don't know, you lose the bit in the middle. So for a period of a couple of years, we had NASA engineers working on our software, and tweaking it for, their flight profiles that they were interested in. So it is unsurprising to me that, NASA are continuing to, use open technologies for, their innovations and progressions of, our understanding of beyond our atmosphere.
Yeah, it seemed super cool. So yeah. And then what else is going on day 3? So we've been talking with this really amazing researcher on the community side, a woman, Miriam, and she's giving a talk later today, actually, too, with her coworkers on studying open source communities, and something that I know people in our chat are interested in. And so she basically did a survey of the entire Apache Foundation's sort of community group, and has been looking into that for connections about how that community developed and how a sort of open source plays into that. And she's just a very engaging person, don't you think, Jillian? I mean, she's incredibly smart and just well researched, and it's cool to see sort of computer science sort of branching into this world of human-centered design and just like how we interact as humans, and how that all plays out in the guise of open source and and those types of interactions. So it's pretty interesting and a cool talk to hear about later. She's actually going to be live streaming her talk from the booth next to ours at Bitergia, just right over this way. So Conference Cam is now going viral. We're inspiring others to be live streaming from the booth. It's all happening.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
Talking with her gives me hope for the younger generations. The fact that she's focusing her PhD on open source and the way that open source is focusing more on human interaction, and how when you get the human interaction right, the open source is more successful. Mm-hmm. To me, that is a combination of computer science and human science, and it's something that I was really excited to geek out with her about. Mm-hmm. We're definitely gonna find a way to continue to engage with her as she continues her research, because I think we have a lot to learn from Miriam. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt. So I know that the two of you have been very busy at the booth there and everything, so I don't know how many talks you've got to see in person. Mm-hmm. I've been rather fortunate in that because of the time zone, it's a late finish, but I get to see a lot of the talks. But there does seem to be a trend, certainly in the community side of things, to start instrumenting community engagement and interaction in order to better understand community dynamics and movements and all sorts of things like that. So there's several talks have either talked about an aspiration to hook into better understanding of their communities, or are already doing it and presenting information that is actionable to them in a way that means that they can present better value to their communities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it's just been such a big theme in it, and it kind of coincides with us all being able to be here in person, even though, I think it's definitely fewer than previous versions of this conference, but there's just this feeling and need for human connection and all of that, and kind of coming out of COVID. I thought Monica hit on that really well in her talk as well. It was very heartfelt about sort of the connections that were formed through Twitch streaming, through online gaming, through interacting with open source, and that's definitely on everybody's mind here. Sort of coming, hopefully on the other side of this pandemic, but just how people forge these connections within their community, and doing that hybrid now, virtual, in person, through open source projects, through getting together on streams and chat channels and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty cool to see, and it's cool to hear people talking about that as well. So
yeah.
It really is. I'd just like to take a moment to welcome back Esme, Big Pod, and Yannick, and the others of you that have joined us in the live stream chat. Hello to you all. I'm not ignoring you. We're not ignoring you. Welcome back. Good to see you here. Now, if there are other people watching, we are at 99 followers on Twitch. Whoever is the 100th follower, if you follow us and you're 100. If you want to, stop by, or whoever over the 100 follows and then comes and joins our Discord and pings me a message, we'll get something to you to make your effort worthwhile.
Yes. Maybe some socks like we have here in the booth.
Yeah.
Maybe we're actually almost out of t-shirts now. So
yeah. Have you been having to what's the right word? Sort of quota those so you don't run out.
No.
I mean, the t-shirts are interesting. There's a folks just on the other side of us who have a t-shirt with a donut on it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was brilliant, right? There's some really good swag here. I think that people are being very thoughtful about giving the attendees what they're interested in. It's been great to have stickers and socks and t-shirts. And not to worry, we have plenty more back at home in Massachusetts. So for everybody who has requested a t-shirt through the virtual booth, we do have more. So I want to make sure we get all of our love out to our friends and family all over the world.
Yeah. It's been cool too. We've been getting some people dropping in virtually in the booth. And so I was syncing up with a student from India earlier today, and he had a bunch of questions about sort of Slim.AI and what we did. And we're going to shoot him out a t-shirt and some stickers for him and his friends. So just because we're a little lean on the, we've gotten a lot of t-shirts out into the crowd here, but we've got plenty more. So yeah, hitting 99 followers is pretty cool. So whoever gets that 100th one, then we'll send a special care package.
And Yannick points out in chat that, I need to stock up on t-shirts, Slim.AI t-shirts for the next OG camp. So we haven't had an OG camp in the UK for 2 years because of, global situations. But OG camp is, it started as a free culture and free software unconference years and years ago, spun out from the podcast that we do. But it's become one of the sort of tech staples for the open source community, not just in the UK now. Yannick is in Switzerland, and he's been a regular attender. We have people travel into that event from all over. But yes, whenever and wherever the next OG camp happens, I'll be sure to speak to Jillian and make sure that, well, first of all, I'll run a Slim.AI booth at the event, and we'll have some Slim.AI stuff for all of you fabulous people that have been joining us in recent times.
And we'll actually be doing, so we've got a couple more of these coming up. We've got kind of a full plate. I'll be at Strange Loop this weekend. I'll just be attending. We aren't presenting at the booth or anything, but happy to provide some updates there. I'll actually be doing some coding there and stuff, and just meeting with developers and stuff like that. So that'll be a fun one. And then we're sponsoring Cloud Native Rejects, which is the sort of fun, like little, pre-KubeCon, any talks that were submitted for KubeCon but didn't get in. But it's a really cool, it's a great group of people, and they're doing sort of hybrid virtual and in Los Angeles. So tickets are free to sign up. So it's just a one-day event on Saturday, October 9th, and we'll be doing that. So people in the chat, well, I'll ping a link in the chat to register for that if people want to check it out. Some cool talks there as well. And then of course we'll be gearing up for the big event, Super Bowl of DevOps, KubeCon in 2 weeks, and we'll have a pretty heavy virtual presence for that too. I think we've now gotten the bugs out of the system for Conference Cam, and so we'll be able to do some more of this stuff, which would be cool.
We met a friend the other day who they have a group here in Seattle called Seagull, SEAGL, and they are having an event. I believe it's November 9th. I don't want to misspeak, but Seagull looks like a pretty cool opportunity to engage with developers who are mostly in the Seattle area, but they are going to have a fully remote experience. And I heard that there might be some type of cosplay going on, and I'm pretty stinking excited about that. So I might be showing up for that one.
So it's interesting. Obviously, I'm sat here in rural England, but I'm very familiar with like the Seattle open source scene. It is a place I have spent an astonishing amount of time and made a deliberate effort some years ago. There were certain open source events that I've always wanted to go to, one of which is Linux Fest Northwest, which takes place in Bellingham, just north of Seattle. And the Seagull team are always at Linux Fest Northwest, so I've got to know them quite well over the years. And there's a very vibrant community of Linux and open source enthusiasts. And what were community events that sprung up, some years ago? have now become like major local technology events, you know, and because being so close to Seattle, sponsored by Amazon and Microsoft, and then of course you get all of the other big players join because you get a number of big organizations involved and everyone wants to be there. So Seagull is a great event, in person or virtual. I've attended both. I've been fortunate to attend both. So yeah, definitely, if you're in the area, it's definitely one to turn up for.
Yeah, or if you want to join virtually, because they are going to do virtual this year, so it should be fun. Very welcoming group of folks, and excited to solve problems for other developers, which we're all about that. We're happy to be part of that ecosystem.
It's interesting you talk about attending virtually, because I had a little exchange with, she's not in the chat today, but I had a little exchange with Monica yesterday, exchanging some notes on some of the talks that we'd seen. And obviously I'm sat here in isolation. I'm watching these things, on the screen in front of me. But you develop a sense of, what you felt came across well and what was powerful, and, what was the thing that's really sort of caught your imagination. And what was interesting is this is the first virtual event where I've spoken to people at the event, and my feeling about those talks is consistent with those people that got to sort of see them firsthand. So I think there's some credit about how this event has been organized for its virtual participants, because I feel very much connected to the event, not least because I've had the opportunity to chat to you from the show floor, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm curious for people in chat. Oh, I see Eric's in chat. Hey, our podcast. And hi, Esme, and hi, Yannick. I'm curious if people have watched and what people in the chat think about some of the events or what they've seen so far. Because like you were saying, Martin, we've been at the booth and it's been good. We've gotten a lot of people coming by and stuff like that. But I'll say I really haven't gotten out to too many of the talks. I've actually been syncing up with Monica a little bit as well, but in person I saw her for breakfast this morning, and she was giving me kind of a lowdown on sort of what she was excited about. Obviously the Linux helicopter was a big piece of excitement for her, but yeah, we also discovered that we're both kind of coffee snobs, so we were comparing notes on what the best coffee in Seattle was. I know that she is known for her tea recommendations, which she usually has, but she also had some good recommendations on coffee this morning, which I needed, so it's good. But
yeah, I can't say it on camera, but I'm gonna give you the name of somewhere in Seattle where I used to go for breakfast. I can't say it out loud, but it is the best breakfast experience I've had anywhere in the world.
Wow.
I hope that you're able to find them. I'll send you details later.
And if people drop into Discord, we'll give the
I was going to say drop into the Slim.AI Discord, and I will gladly post a link to the place, but I'm not going to say it out loud.
Okay. All right. I'm intrigued.
I'm curious if anyone in the chat caught the second keynote this morning. I thought it was really interesting, some of the learnings on the culture shift at Microsoft coming out of the office of the CTO and the Azure team that's focused on open source. And for me, what really resonated in, I believe her name is Sarah, in Sarah's talk was this concept that when you're reforming your culture, it's going to be bumpy. Right. And that you weave empathy into what you do, and you seek understanding, and you are open to respecting that someone else has a different experience, right? Like even in the same conversation, their experience is different than the one that you're having.
Right.
So I'm curious if anyone else had thoughts on Sarah's talk this morning.
Yeah, Yannick says he's only caught Monica's talk, which if you're going to catch one, I think that was the one to catch. And yeah, the time zones are definitely tough. Esme says embedded Linux is mostly attended by developers remotely, and the highlight has been ironically reading devs complaining about the conferences and learning about various parts of the ecosystem. So yeah, I know. I feel like we've definitely been hearing some frustrations with virtual events, and I know they can be challenging, and doing them hybrid is also challenging. So glad that we get an opportunity to sync up with everybody on this, and it's a good feeling that way. But and the community talks, I think, have definitely been a highlight for sure.
I was going to say, I don't think it matters what your interest area is, but the community leadership and diversity tracks at this event have been remarkably strong in terms of the number of talks and the impactfulness of those talks. It's been great. It's been a while since it's been a while since a lot of us have been to an event, but this has been just amazing, like a breath of fresh air. I feel connected to a bunch of people, in a way, and I'm sat very far away from where the event has happened, but I've got genuine value out of attending this event remotely. And I was going to say, you were talking about, things that resonate, and we're waiting to hear sort of from some of the others, which ones they found enjoyable. Last night I watched one which really made me think, and we talk a lot about putting applications in containers to deploy those applications, into production. But the whole talk was about, developers, you should put your entire development environments in containers and have lots of isolated workspaces. And they went through a very practical workshop on how to use Visual Studio Code with remote containers and put your entire dev environments inside multiple containers. And I do things like that, but I feel like this was like the next level. So Peter, you'll be familiar with virtual env in the Python environments and all the rest of it, and that's something that I've used for years and I continue to use because it's there and I understand it. But I watched this yesterday and I felt like this is a language agnostic way to take that sort of capability and just apply it to everything. And I felt like that was a light bulb moment for me, that this was the time that I needed to change the way I do development, and that, I could do better at not polluting my local system with spurious stuff.
Yeah. I think we were talking about this the last time we were doing the Python photo app in the workshop a couple weeks ago. And I was just saying that my local machine is like a mess of different environments, and some are installed somewhere, and I try to use one as like a master one, but then when I create the requirements.txt, it's got all kinds of garbage in it, and that wound up in my container, which was a bad news for that container. And there's a lot happening in that space, which is interesting. Gitpod released today, they announced, or maybe it was yesterday, they announced sort of an open VS Code, sort of like an open source based something similar to code spaces that obviously GitHub and Microsoft released. So pretty interesting, and it's all container based, and we do a lot of work with the Gitpod team, and that's like a really cool experience. And sorry, I might have just sworn on camera. We just lost camera here for a second, so
it's fine. We lost the camera at the moment that I think there was a temporary network hiccup as well. So
yes,
hopefully it's fine.
Peaches.
Let's just catch up on some of the feedback from the people that have joined us in chat. So Big Pod says, as a big follower of Microsoft's, cloud and languages, that yes, they concur with, your observations of the talk today. And Esme, who's also been attending the event remotely, and I'm delighted to say, attending the event remotely as a result of being a raffle winner in our Discord. And she's saying that her experiences of attending the event remotely are similar to my own, in that she feels quite connected to the event. And Yannick points out that the last talk that he saw in person was unfortunately me giving a talk, and it was a talk that I'd written to take an hour. And due to a scheduling conflict, I only had 25 minutes. So I delivered a one hour presentation in 25 minutes in Manchester. And 2 years ago. So yeah, I look forward to, exploring beyond these four walls before too long, and also, standing behind a podium. Speaking of which, standing behind podiums. So Jillian, you're our star attraction today, right? You're up later today. What are you going to be talking about?
So I want to pause and just say how grateful I am. We've had folks that have registered for my talk that have flagged me down in the hallway, and they're they see my badge and they're like, "You're Jillian. I'm excited to hear about your talk." And so, before I've even had the conversation, the topic is important, right? And I think that validates why, us being here is important. It validates why Slim is focused on culture being important. And I'm excited to talk about how if you have a popular open source project, as a creator of an open source, you might be asking yourself, could this be a company, right? And how would I do that well? And some of the things that we heard in the talk this morning in the keynote are also things that I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into around weaving empathy into how you communicate with your employees, how you communicate with your community, talking a little bit about meeting your community where they're at so that you can identify alignments and then potentially bring them into the fold as future employees, right? If they're already contributing to your open source and they have the same type of values, they are a great candidate for you to consider to bring into the organization. And also really staying hyper-focused on the problem that you solve, because I've been in enough startups to know that it's very easy to get distracted on A, we can go over here and make more money doing this, or B, our top customer wants that, or C, our investor wants this. And when you really stay focused on why you started your open source in the first place and you align that to what you're doing in your company, that's where the magic really happens. So we've got a number of folks that are already registered. For those folks that registered, I reached out to most of them on LinkedIn just to connect already, because if they can't make it, they might want to have a conversation after they watch the replay. Yeah, I'm excited about it. How do you guys feel?
I'm really looking forward to it, because I've had the opportunity to get to know you just a little bit in the time that I've worked at Slim, and my first realization as to your motivations in life, or at least in work, were when I heard you interviewed by Jono, and it's quite inspirational, frankly, and I feel like you're ahead of the curve. I feel like this event and the community and diversity track is kind of catching up with the thinking that I heard from you some time ago. So I'm very encouraged that there, and also one of yesterday's keynotes. Unfortunately, I don't remember her name, but she was the, I think, director of diversity and inclusion at GitHub. And she presented a very powerful talk, and it sounded very familiar to me because of the things that I've discussed with you. And I was just like, wow, we're in we Slim are in such a good place right now.
Yeah, it feels that way. I think what I heard in this morning's keynote was we're way down the road at Microsoft, and we have to rip and replace our culture. And I think I'm gonna create an opportunity to inspire open source creators who are considering building an organization with some really very tactical and tangible ways of starting your culture right away, and really inspiring them towards maybe taking up the mantle and extending the impact that their open source makes by having a company that also fosters that.
Yeah, and I see Big Pod talking a little bit about things coming out of the CTO's office. I was just waving down. We've been talking with some of the open source program office people, and met somebody who's doing some pretty innovative work in that space. And I think that's also an interesting thing that kind of segues with Jillian's talk, where it's not just kind of open source maintainers and that type of community. It's actually organizations and companies that are thinking about how they interact with open source projects, and then sometimes those open source projects become companies, and then those companies, start interacting with each other, so it's really, there's a lot of like sort of ecosystem development going on. And so it's sort of important as you're thinking about starting a company to think about what your community and your culture looks like. So
absolutely.
Yeah. And it doesn't ever really stop, right? Like it continues to extend through the business, through the community, through the investors, through the advisors. And when you put good stuff out in the world, you attract like-minded people who want to solve the same problems that you're solving and want to contribute. And that's all we can hope for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Indeed. I think that's a suitably uplifting note to sort of wrap up our conversation, because Jillian, I'm sure you have got a little bit of preparation you want to do ahead of your talk. It's not long now. How long before you're presenting?
I'm going on at 1:45 Pacific, and there will be a recording. So for all of our friends that that's a little late for you, feel free to watch the recording afterward, and don't hesitate to ping us. I would love to geek out further.
Absolutely. And can you just give us the title of your talk?
Yeah, so it's so you have a popular GitHub project and you're considering, could this be a company? If so, how? How do you get your culture of contribution and inclusivity right away? And for the folks that are in person today, I'll be in room 502.
Perfect. And for those of you that are virtual, I'm going to be making a recording of Jillian's talk, and we'll be putting that on the SlimDevOps YouTube account, and you can find links to that in the panels below our Twitch About page. So that will be up probably tomorrow, because I think the timing works. So my time tomorrow morning, yes.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to touch on before we put a bow on this?
I don't think so. I just want to thank French guy, thank Yannick for coming and definitely not hearing me with that little minor reaction to having our Wi-Fi network issues. So hopefully nobody else heard that as well. But thanks everybody for stopping by. It's been really fun to be doing streams from the booth, and hopefully we can do some more of them at future events, and then we'll be back in our regular home offices doing our demos, Martin. We're going to do container networking, where we're going to split up our photo app into 3 separate services. And I've been working on that a little bit.
Microservices and container orchestration and Docker Compose. And I also saw, I don't remember if it was John or Kyle, but one of them put something out about how Docker Slim can now interact with Docker Compose, and you can choose a discrete container within that as the one that you want to minify. So pay close attention, because I think we'll be diving into that a little bit out from now.
Yeah, totally.
Awesome.
All right. Well, Big Pot heard it, but it sounds like he wasn't too offended by that little gaffe. And Yannick says we actually we convinced Yannick to use Docker, so that's a big one. So that'll be a fun one. And while I'm on the road at Strange Loop, I'll be working out some of the code on that, and we can play around with some compose files next time we're all on our regularly scheduled Twitch. So
fantastic. Well, thank you both for making the time to join me from the booth. Enjoy the rest of the conference. I can't wait for your talk later, Jillian. Looking forward to that immensely. And for everyone else, get subscribed to our YouTubes. I can't rebroadcast Jillian's talk live for reasons, but we will put up a version of Jillian's talk on YouTube very promptly. So do get subscribed over there so you can see that. Right. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
All right. Thank you, Martin. Appreciate it. Yep.
Bye-bye for now.
All right. Bye, everybody. See ya.